Hi, it's Dave from Megapoints Controllers. On part 2 of the enclosure assembly, we'll finish making this box and we'll get it into a state where it's ready for us to wire up the panel itself. So the PVA glue's had a good dry overnight, so I'll release it from the clamp and we'll see what we've got. That looks good. Everything's in the right place. Excellent. So what we have is the bottom case, and it's ready for the top half to be made. So the bottom half of the enclosure is almost complete. All we need to do is fit the inner lip. On the lips, you'll find on some of the designs, you'll have 4 of these little locating holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's on the long and the short sides. And other boxes like the A4 and I think the A3 only have a pair because it's not necessary. Now, again, dirty side in, fits to the panel, and it'll go in like this. Now, if you notice here, there's quite a bit of wiggle room. That's because, in this case, the side pieces are designed to go right up and flush to the edges, and then this will lock in like so and clamp. And the same with this side. If you want to trim a millimetre off, be my guest. The idea of this is that you have a lip where the top will clamp onto. So we'll just finish this part off, bits off, and we will add some glue. Because in this case the ends are the tight fit, the interference fit, oops, sorry I'm shaking the camera, I'll fit those first. So I'm going to put some PVA along here, but I'm not going to go to the top because that's going to be higher than the height of the base. Okay, let's have another go. What you didn't see off camera was me wrestling with the top, trying to clean this out so the glue would flow. Is it any better? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Now this really isn't a structural piece, but I'll put some PVA in the corner anyway. Can't do any harm. Let's do that for this side. Try and keep this in shot. Quite notorious for failing to do that. Can you see that? Yes, you can. Let's do this piece. I'll do the corners. Nice little bead down the corner. Those of you who know joinery and woodwork are probably screaming at me for all the things I'm doing wrong. I'm no woodworker, no joiner. I find do what works and then keep doing it. I'm going to use a clamp again just to hold this on in the centre. I think this is where I say use your own favourite clamping method. But I don't know anyone who has a favourite. And that should go into there. Excellent. Right, stick some glue on this. Can you see it? You can now. Okay, bit of glue. And let's stick some along here. If you don't have clamps, or you don't have the web that I use to hold the whole box together, then I think a belt or some of the elastic roof rack ties would help. Dirty side is where the glue goes. Hopefully you can see that. Bead on. Okay, back of the clamp, and one for the opposite side. So we just want to check, can you see everything? Yes, we're in at the corners, All that matters is that the centre pieces are forming a lip here, and that'll be obvious when we come to assemble the top and fit it. Now I'll put this out of the way and we'll get on with the top half of the panel. So we'll go back to our bezel, let's take one. And we want the pieces with the slots in them because these form the slots for the bezel. Do not glue both bezels in, because if you do and you haven't put the panel in place, the actual panel mimic diagram, you'll be wondering how to fit it. So what we can do first is we can test fit. Now again, dirty side, clean side. And the way I like to do it is I obviously want the clean side up, the dirty side down. That's the dirty side, that's the clean side. So I'll take this panel, this bezel, and I'll fit it so that it's up. Now just for clarity, the castle at the top is the up, so this will sit like this, and the second bezel will go into this when we're ready. So let's pop this on here and check it fits. Every now and then they need a little bit of encouragement. I think it very much depends on the moisture content on the day. That was a good fit. Here's another side, dirty side in. Want the good stuff sticking out for everyone to admire your layout. Looks good. Let's do this side. Dirty side in, slot it into place. If you find you're really struggling, it usually indicates there's something wrong. See this side, there's a cutout here. That's where all my cables will go in and out. Dirty side sticking up. Oops. Rotate this. Try and slot it in. I'm just dry fitting. I just want to make sure it all fits. I don't want to be doing adjustments with glue on it. The reason we're doing this now is the top part of the enclosure forms a nice raised work surface when you're working on the panel and doing the actual wiring. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm now going to take it off, stick glue on the joints and clamp it up. I quite like this 3mm wood. It seems to be quite it has a good finish. It's planed and it's quite strong. They claim it's poplar, but I'm not convinced, though I don't know enough to know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put beads of glue between this row of slots, not the top, just the bottom one, and on these horizontal edges here. So we'll get a bit down there, and on here, and there. Some glue here, and here. Hopefully you can see this. I can. That's not the point. No, a bit more. The very last thing we do to this, and it'll be after we've wired the panel, is to attach the top bezel. We want some wiggle room when we mount the buttons. Good, happy with that. Rinse and repeat. Blob on the end, blob there, blob there. I use PVA because it gives me plenty of time to work with it. If we were using a super glue, we'd already be in trouble. And this is the two long sides done. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Now the short one. Don't forget we're gluing the dirty side. That's the clean side, that's the dirty side, with the marks. A little bit there, and here, and down here. Dirty side. Great. Now, before I slot the bezel into that, I have an opportunity to get a little bit of glue on the actual slot itself. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on one side. So I'm keeping this, I want this to be upwards because it's the clean side. So I'll put a little dab of glue on the dirty side. It's quite fun trying to do this at arm's length, when normally I'd be right on it. And that'll just give a little bit of extra adhesion. Am I still in shot? Almost. Let's get a bit on. And the far side, which we can make the near side. I've worked in this room where the laser cutter is in winter, and it's been down to -4, so I'm feeling positively privileged at the moment. Okay, so we want that this way, and the dirty side to go down. The Castles form the top, slot it in. Take your time, don't break anything, don't force anything now. The time for adjustments are over. Tell you what, let's do the opposite. So when I rotate this, ensuring that the castellated tops are the same side, we don't want this upside down. There we go. Part way there. Now this end should slot on. Am I in shot? Yes. Okay, slot that on, slot the end on. And I can rinse and repeat here. So you notice the top part with the bezel, the sides are pretty much holding themselves together. It's a good fit. Great, there we go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the top bezel on, but it will not be glued. This is just to provide another surface for this to locate against for when I clamp it. It'll just help. Slot it in. Oh, it's looking good. And where's my infinite supply of clamps? Infinite means 4. So I'm just going to hold it down, slot it in, and nip it just to hold it together. Nothing too tight. Let's give it the basic shape. I think that's good. I used to do this before I had clamps, and I get quite creative with elastic bands. That's where we come back to use your favourite method. Can't say I have a favourite, it just gets the job done. There we go, everything's held in, and that's looking apart. Check the corners, make sure they're all in. Yes, they are. In fact, do you know what? I think I'm going to use the webbing just to locate them. Set this up so clear the tension. And just whip this around it, and it'll help hold the corners in. Can you see? Yes. 1, 2. If you haven't got this, like say, use a belt or another elastic of some description. Great, now I can move it and just check the corners are in place. We don't want it to glue with a corner out. I'm telling you to do that because I've done it. I've been so busy checking something else. Right, we'll leave that to dry and I'll see you when we're ready. So here's the top part. You can see the lip connected to the castellated holes filled. I've removed the top bezel so that I've got a lip for the panel to go on, and I'll drop this on here. When they're new, they can be quite tight because they are made to quite tight tolerances. A little bit of encouragement, there we go, and we're in. And there's our enclosure. And if I look through the hole, you can see right through, so it's lined up nicely on the inside. So a captive nut will go on there, and I'll show you that later. One on the side, and at the back, I've got my slot here for this, which will recess inside when I open that. Everything will line up, it's looking good. I may be tempted to give it a little bit of a sand after I've assembled it, but for now we've got the basic enclosure. So if that's correct, I should be able to drop the panel on it. So when you're putting a Mimic panel together, first thing to note, on the MDF, the backing wood, the side with all the markings, and if you see here, you can see that all the buttons are marked, is to the outside or the down, so that the panel will go on top. And that's so when you're wiring up this panel and you turn it over, everything is marked out. I'm dying to drop this on, so let's stick it in, see how it looks. That's a good fit. And let's put the bezel on, the top bezel. Let's give ourselves the first look of this. I'm quite excited myself. That will be glued when it's finished. Oh yes. Well, I think that looks quite smart. And that is the first fitting of this particular size Mimic panel. To remove it, I can tip it over or I can split it. Now, I mentioned before about a work surface, and I'll be covering this later on. But if you keep the top off, when you're wiring this up, if you put the whole fascia in upside down, there's your work surface. You've got a gap underneath so nothing's hitting the ground, and you can screw in all the buttons, attach the lights and so on, all on this. That's for a later video. I'm quite excited about that. I think that's looking rather good. Now, I mentioned before that I tweaked the design slightly across different size boxes. Here's a smaller enclosure. This is, I think, 280 by 100. In fact, I can be a bit more scientific about that with this amazing device called a ruler. 280, 100. And it's a similar design. So in the back I have the hole for all my wires and bits coming out. It's like a clamshell, so the whole thing comes off. Here's the inner lips on this, so you can see I've got a retaining hole here which will have the captive nut in, and on this side, nothing on the sides. And if you look at the top piece, again, it's got this double lip arrangement, so I should be able to pop this out. There we go. And there it is, ready to accept that particular Mimic panel. So despite being subtly different, they are essentially the same. And on this one, this just has a lip here and here, and the sides with the extra reinforcement help locate that. The most popular size we do is the A4 or 300 by 200 mil. Here's a top again. Has it been assembled? It's been assembled. I suspect the only thing holding that together is friction. Here's the top fascia. Pop that off. Here's the bottom bezel. And it's pushed into all the holes in the same way, even though there's a slight subtle difference around how it all hangs together. See, I've got different holes here for my network and other cables. I think that's glued. Yeah, that's glued. But they all follow a common theme. So when you're assembling it, as long as you assemble and glue down the inside bezel only first, you're not going to have any problems. Just before I sign off, I better show you how the two sides clamp together. In a little pink bag, you'll find a set of screws, nuts, and a little network cable. Now, you'll either find two or more, depending on the size of panel you have. So let me demonstrate how these go together. You can put them in before or after you've secured the fascia, but if you do it before, then you've got a bit more room to work and you can put your hands in. So I'll take the top lid off. And it'll leave the larger holes exposed. This is a captive nut. We use them a lot on radio control aircraft. And here is the bolt, which screws in this way. So you'll see the nut has some some little teeth here. Whoops. Let's get this on camera. So you'll see the nut has some teeth here. So all you have to do is locate the hole here on the inside, put the nut up and press it in. Now there'll be a gap there. Let's try and show you this. There'll be a gap here. So what I do is I take some pliers or vice grips and I'll just carefully squeeze it in, keeping it parallel to the plane of the wood. There we go. And there's the captive nut fitted, and it's not going anywhere. So I'll rinse and repeat that for the other holes. In the case of this, there are 3 others. Drop this in here, nip it up, whoops. You'll see I'm not using any glues for this. If you want to, be my guest, but shouldn't need it. You don't have to do it too tight. All you're trying to do is locate it so that when you put the outer bolt in, it stays still. That one in here. Nip it up. And if you've made the enclosure correctly, then because of the fine tolerances, everything should line up. A bit more parallel. There we go. Last one here. Sink the teeth in. Great. Now, when I take the upper side of this, I can drop it on. 1, 2, 3 and 4. The Allen head is 2.5mm. If you're looking for the right tool, push this into the outside, locate it onto the nut, and screw for England, I think. There's one in. That's on, secured. It's made the fascia, sorry, made the face go flush, and this is now locked to the bottom. Rinse and repeat for the other 3. Don't overdo it. It's only got to secure it. It doesn't. You're not trying to put a load-bearing surface together with it or anything, really. Am I still on camera? Almost. And the last one. Drop that on. Screw it up. Sometimes you need to wiggle a bit to line it up, but it's usually not difficult. Nip it in, and there we are. We've now secured the top half to the bottom, and that would, if the fascia was installed, complete the enclosure. I'll probably leave those in for now. And this little cable, well, you'll see that when I come to wire it up. You'll notice it's an extension lead. There's the typical plug here, and this is a socket. The socket will mount on the rear of the panel where the hole is, and that'll be usually glued into the hole. And the other end will plug into your multi-panel or your mini panel processor, and that will provide your network port for the external access. But that'll probably be done towards the end of wiring this. So back to the over and out, and thanks for watching. So on this video, you've seen how to construct the basic enclosure, what the different bezels do, which way the panels go in terms of insides and outsides, and you've learnt how to identify the different pieces from the bottoms to the tops and how the bezels fit. On the next video, I'll be showing you how to wire up this panel and building it out as a demonstration unit. So we'll see how we go. So for now, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy building your enclosures and your Mimic panels like I've enjoyed building this. Have a great day. See you soon.